Are you looking to replace your 9 to 5 with short-term rentals? Let's talk about the pros, the cons, my journey, and I'm sure this will be helpful for those of you that are looking to get started. Let's jump right in. So here's how my journey began in March of 2017. I actually started with properties that I already owned. You see, I had a friend of mine who told me how she owned 2 duplexes and they were all short-term rentals, all 4 of the units, and she was making 3 times more than what she was generating from her long-term rentals. And when she told me that at the end of 2016, I thought to myself, well, I have some units where the lease agreements are ending at the beginning of 2017. So I started to, upgrade my units, furnish my units. And then in March of 2017, I launched my first 4 units on the Airbnb platform. And I started making 3.5 times more than what I was making from long-term rents. And at the time, I was actually a professional dancer and I had a dancing business where I would host a nightclub. I would teach Latin dance to tens of thousands of people per year. I was traveling all over the world. I had a choreography company. I had a couple Latin dance festivals in Los Angeles teaching this dance called bachata. Right? The problem is I built a business that revolved around me, and if I wasn't there present physically, I didn't make money. So I always refer to that business as my job, because in entrepreneurship, if the business doesn't run without you, you don't have a business, you have a job. So that was my rat race. And a lot of times, with the nightclub, I wouldn't get home till 2, 3, 4, sometimes 5 in the morning. And I knew that in the near future, I wanted to get married, I wanted to start a family, and there was no way that I would be able to have, just a normal life where I could sleep 7, 8 hours. Because when I was going to bed that late, I would wake up at noon, 1 p.m., 2 p.m., 3 p.m. Like it was about to be dark by the time I was starting to wake up. And, it just wasn't working with my natural circadian rhythm, right? Right? You want to go to bed when it's dark and wake up when the sun comes up. And so long story short, that was my rat race. And getting these 4 units on Airbnb replaced the 6 figures that I was making from my dance business. And that's how I got out of the rat race, which was amazing. And again, I already had those units. It was a low-hanging fruit opportunity. I didn't need a lot of capital to be able to launch those units. Again, because I already owned them, I probably invested maybe $30,000 in total between all 4 units. And now I had a 6-figure net profit from those 4 units over the next 12 months. Now, where things got really interesting is at the time, my wife was a law enforcement officer and she was also making 6 figures. She went to school and actually got her degree in criminal justice and she was making 6 figures. The problem is it was a federal job and she was working up to 16 hours a day, multiple times per week. You see, a lot of the federal law enforcement officers, the way they make their money is by working overtime, because I forgot if it's a time and a half or double per hour, but that's where they make most of their money. And my wife would be 15 minutes from getting off of her 8-hour shift, and then they would say, hey, Stephanie, you got to stay for another 8 hours. And there was absolutely nothing she could say. She couldn't say no, and if she did, she could get fired. Long story short, we had just become pregnant at the end of 2018, and we knew that my wife working in that high stress environment was going to impact her health and our baby's health. So I came up with a game plan to replace her 9 to 5. But as we were going over the game plan, we knew that we were going to need 3 Airbnbs to replace her 6 figures of income. I didn't have the capital to buy 3 properties. When it comes to the down payments, the closing costs, maybe some upgrades and renovations, furniture, it was going to be hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I just didn't have the money at the time. So I started learning about arbitrage, and we went ahead and launched 7 arbitrage units at the beginning of 2019, and we made over $1 million that year just from the arbitrage units. And we launched those 7 arbitrage units within 3 months. So it was pretty amazing that we were able to replace her 9 to 5. But again, it wouldn't have been possible without arbitrage. So the purchasing stuff helped me replace my 9 to 5 because I already had those units. Arbitrage is what helped us replace my wife's 9 to 5, and now she hasn't had to go to work in over 3 years. She's a stay-at-home mom. We have 2 beautiful daughters, and I work from home. In fact, I'm in my backyard right now as we speak. And so because I work from home and she doesn't have to work on the business, obviously she works more than I do because she spends the majority of the time with our girls and homeschooling. But long story short, we get to spend a lot more time as a family, and we get to raise our own kids. And I know it's challenging for a lot of people out there who work full-time jobs as parents, and unfortunately, their children are in daycare from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then obviously they get home and they're super tired, and we get tired too, right? But we get to spend a lot more time. So we're very blessed that we took this route because it has completely changed our life in the course of our family. So that's how I replaced my 9 to 5. That's how my wife replaced her 9 to 5. But let's talk about, some of the challenges that also come with it. And then I'm going to provide some opportunities and solutions for those challenges as well. One of the challenges, again, even when I got started, I needed over $30,000 or just about $30,000 to launch those 4 units between small upgrades and minor renovations and furnishing and photography, supplies, decor. And some people don't have $30,000 to launch even properties that they already own. Or what about the capital that it took to launch those 7 subleases, right? Because at the time it was an average of about $15,000 to launch each one of those arbitrage. So 15, 30, 60, is that 90? Yeah. So you're talking about $90,000 to launch 6 properties that then started making over $1 million in revenue, right? So it was totally worth it, but it still took a good chunk of capital to launch each and every one of those units. By the time we paid the first month's rent, the deposit, the furniture, supplies, decor, photography, pay for welcome books, all these different things, right? And so a lot of people may not have the capital to go and launch some arbitrage units or on existing units you already own. So what we did is we actually used a couple things. One, we got something called a balance transfer, which allowed us to transfer money from a credit card into our checking account. Now, there's a strategy out there called cash advance where you use a credit card to pay off another credit card. That is not what I'm talking about. And I used to work at Bank of America back in 2007, and I used to process these balance transfers from a credit card into a checking account all the time. So that's how I knew it worked. And so we started implementing that strategy for ourselves. And when we first got approved, it was only like $5,000, but every 6 months I would call Bank of America and request a credit line increase. And then they took me to 15 and 25 and then 40 and then 50. Now we have over $200,000 of availability that we could transfer from a credit card into a checking account. And the best part is when we get these promotional interest rates, it's at a 0% interest for up to 21 months, and we only pay a one-time 3% fee. So that's how we did it. We transferred money from a credit card into a checking account to launch the first arbitrage unit, but then we reinvested the arbitrage profits to launch more arbitrage units. And that's how we were able to launch 7 in 3 months and made over $1 million in revenue just from those 7 properties. So you can also apply for business credit cards, and there's actually a business credit card that also allows you to do the balance transfer, because most of the credit cards that allow you to do this transfer from a credit card into a checking account are personal credit cards. But there's one company out there that I've used to do a business one, and that is with US Bank. Their credit card on the business side allows you to transfer money from your credit card into the checking account. And the beauty is, because it's a business credit card, it does not show up on your personal credit report. Whereas on the personal side, it is going to impact, like if you transfer, $15,000 from your credit card into your checking account, guess what? Now you're going to have more personal debt, which is going to decrease and lower your personal credit score until you pay off that balance. But if you're not planning to, buy a home or make any large purchases, it could be a great idea. So there's another strategy that I want to talk about that a lot of people forget to talk about, or they just haven't realized that you could print money utilizing this strategy. So I talked a little bit about purchasing, and I know I didn't break down how the purchasing works and all that, but I cover that in other videos, but I'm just giving you a high-level overview of my journey. So I started with purchasing and then subleasing, and then third, I got into the co-hosting, aka the management side, where I also have a couple of Airbnbs that I manage for other people, and I make a percentage of the revenue, and that means I get a piece of all the upside with none of the downside. Here's what I mean. With the purchasing and the arbitrage side, like what if you have a month where you lose money or you break even, right? So that obviously impacts you directly, because if you're negative on a bad month, that money is going to have to come out of your bank account to cover those losses. Like if you're negative $500, right? That could happen, right? This is business. Anyone who says otherwise is lying to you. There's going to be some good months and some bad months. But at the end of the day, what's going to matter is, hey, what was your overall 12-month revenue? And more importantly, what was your net profit? And if you made a profit, then that's what makes sense regardless of the ups and downs, right? Now, with the management side, the reason I say a piece of all the upside with none of the downside is because let's say there's a property you are managing that usually makes $10,000 a month in gross revenue. And if you're making 20% in revenue from like a revenue share where you make 20% and the owner or person subleasing the property who you're managing for makes 80%, they still got to cover all their expenses, whether it's the rent, mortgage, utilities, cleaning, supplies, replenishables. I feel like that sounded kind of like a rap song, kind of, right? And so if you're making 20%, that means you're making $2,000 and you're in profit in day one, right? When you're subleasing, it could take 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 months, depending on the property and how much you invested, to make your investment back before you're actually in profit, which is still really good, right? Breaking even in 3 to 6 months and then profiting for the rest of the year. And if you have a 2-year or a 3-year lease, that's amazing. On the management side, what's really interesting is you're making profit on day one. Why? Because it's not your Airbnb. You didn't have to incur those costs. Now, obviously, there's more benefits to owning the real estate and arbitraging yourself, because now there's a higher risk, but there's a much higher reward, right? There's always going to be a risk-reward ratio. But on the management side, it's also a great way to get started, especially if you don't have capital. Or if you're unable or choose not to get any good debt, like credit cards, balance transfers, business loans, private money. So this could be an amazing way to start your journey. Like if you are a person that doesn't like to take risk, there is zero risk starting a management company. Why? If the Airbnb you're managing made $0 in revenue, you just don't get paid. But that's okay. At least you're not negative. Whereas the owner or person doing the arbitrage is going to have to come out of pocket that month to cover the rent or cover the mortgage. You, on the other hand, if it loses money, at least you're not negative. You're at zero. And zero is better than negative. But you know what I mean? So you're also incentivized, because you're getting a piece of the revenue, you're incentivized to make the Airbnb as profitable as possible. Now, one of the other challenges with getting into short-term rentals is regulation. You want to make sure that any city that you look at launching allows for you to get a permit. And here's why. If you go into a city where there is no regulation, I call that a gray area, right? What if they implement a regulation in 3 months, 6 months? And any time there is no regulation to then when they implement a regulation, the changes are typically drastic because they're implementing something that never existed, which could put you out of business. Maybe you can't operate anymore, right? I actually experienced that one time, but I covered that in a different video. So the best way to go about when it comes to regulation is only operate in cities where you can get a permit. And when and if they implement any adjustments to a regulation that already exists, they are typically very minor. The last challenge that you'll experience, especially if you're implementing the arbitrage side where you rent properties from landlords and then re-rent them on Airbnb, and the difference from what you pay in rent and what you generate on Airbnb is your profit. The biggest challenge with this strategy is absolutely going to be getting a yes from a landlord. In my experience, if we call 20 landlords, we're going to get 1 to 3 yeses, like 3 on the high end that say yes out of 20 and 1 on the low end. Or it could be that out of 20, none of them said yes, and then I call 5 more and I get 2 or 3 yeses. It's just going to be a numbers game, right? So you've got to be willing to make those phone calls. My recommendation is, hey, just make 5 phone calls a day. And by the end of the week, you'll definitely have a couple of people that said yes. And it's just going to be a numbers game at the end of the day. That being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Exciting that you are getting started in this journey. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments down below. I will personally respond to each and every one of those comments. Make sure you guys check out the links down in the description. Follow me on Instagram. If you haven't already, make sure you like this video and check out one of my other videos here. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.